Patreon Q&A number 112. I want to thank all 120 of my amazing patrons. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to support me the way that you have. And to everyone else listening, there's going to be spoilers for all of the series that I'm going to be talking about, so tread carefully after this point. Wolffire54 asks, who would be a good rival for Saitama if Garo and Saitama had a third person to make a trio? Who would it be, like Zenitsu or Todoroki? Well, that's a good question, because as we know, One Punch Man doesn't have like a traditional, you know, like setup that standard battle manga and shonens do. It's very unorthodox. So, I mean, if you really want to look at it, you could say that like the trio is technically like Geno, Saitama, Fubuki, I guess, maybe even King. But for the sake of the video and for the sake of what he's saying in the question, I would say that a good trio would be like Garo, Saitama, and Tatsumaki, because then she could fill in like that that female role, and they're all around kind of like the same scale of power, I suppose. So it makes sense to me, at least. And also, like, if you want to say like who are rivals and who aren't, I mean, of course Saitama doesn't really have any real rivals, but at this moment in time, at least, you know, Garo is somewhat of the rival, I suppose. And Tatsumaki, I don't know if she would say she's a rival, but she's definitely like could fit that third wheel description. If anybody, certainly could. So I think Garo, Saitama, and Tatsumaki are probably good candidates for the big three. I mean, of course, we're talking about like the big three of like the power scale, then it would be like, you know, Awakened Garo, Boros, and Saitama then. But then, I don't know. I don't even know who would be number 3 if you didn't even count Saitama at this point. Difficult to say. But going back to the whole, you know, Tatsumaki, Saitama, Garo thing, I would say that, especially considering that there's kind of like that, I don't know, tension between them, you know, Tatsumaki at least, it would make more sense for her to be a part of that dynamic more so than Fubuki, I guess. And then your second question, who would be a bigger Dragon Ball fan, Garo or Saitama? I would say Saitama for sure, because Dragon Ball doesn't really have any relatable villains. I mean, Vegeta maybe, but he becomes domesticated pretty quickly, and he comes from a privileged place, which Garo would obviously be against. So I would say Saitama for sure, since he would have like somewhat of a hero to, or somebody relatable hero, you know, figure to root for. Joe Diaz, can you rank the S class by who has the coolest design slash look? So I'll have the list right here on the side of the video. I'll say the top 5. Blast for sure. Blast is awesome. He has like my favorite design, you know, kind of looks like, you know, like I always say, manga Superman and whatnot. Then I really like Drive Knight. He looks evil and menacing, and it's so cool. And I also like Tatsumaki's design. Yes, she is aesthetically appealing, but like, she just has a solid design too. I like the way that it's minimalistic, modest, yet somehow super revealing at the same time. And if Metal Bat fought a Rouge from One Piece, who would win? Super difficult to say. We haven't even really fully seen a Rouge in like an actual fight yet, as far as I know. We saw him go against the Pacifistas on Sabaody, and he looked kind of good at that. I think Rouge was definitely ahead of the rest of, or most of the Supernovas at that time, pre-time skip. And it kind of revealed that he probably has like some kind of growth ability or something like that. Or maybe it comes from his devil fruit, probably. But I would say that Metal Bat probably has the better feats at this point. So I'd go with Metal Bat right now. Beowolf asks, is Zombie Man's regeneration ability better than Wolverine's, who's in the comics said he can regenerate from a drop of blood? I don't think Zombie Man can come back from a drop of blood. His regeneration is good, but also one said in like an interview that if he was like put in a blender or something, then he would die. Or if he was chopped up to mincemeat or something. So it's very limited as to like how much he can come back from. It's not as good as coming back from a drop of blood though. Even though I haven't personally seen Wolverine do that, I guess he's done it in one of the iterations. And then do I think Puri could take Beast King? hard to say. I mean, maybe non-transformed Beast King because he's only stated to be a demon. But like, once he transforms, it's like, I don't know, he has feats similar to that of Neon. I would say that Purry could take the demon because he's taken demons. Maybe some even strong ones, but I don't know about Transform Beast King because he has an ambiguous level of power. Mr.Awsome asks, how would you rank the positions of being a member of the 7, the S-Class, or the Billboard top 10 in My Hero? Like, how much power comes with the title in terms of political and social power? I would say the 7 for sure, because it's never really emphasized how exactly popular like the S-Class and the Billboard top 10 heroes are. I mean, they are obviously very popular within that world, but like, we see it way more on display with the 7. Like, Homelander is like just as famous as the president, if not even more so. So I don't know, I would say that the 7 probably has the most impact, and that's only because we've seen the most of it. Garret M asks, do you think Drive Knight is going to be like Kamen Rider? I think they have a lot of similarities. I think it would be interesting. So what do you mean exactly like Kamen Rider? Because I mean, I don't really know too much about him, but from what I do know, he's kind of like a Power Ranger on a motorcycle. So I guess they have aesthetic similarities, but like, does Kamen Rider turn out to be evil or something that I'm not aware of? Because you know how I feel about Drive Knight. But yeah, I mean, if you want to elaborate next week on the similarities you personally see and how they match up, I mean, go for it. But I'm just out of the loop with him. Here's a question: how strong would Yuji be with or without Sukuna's power disaster level? So without it, I think Yuji Itadori, you know, standard tiger possibly. I mean, obviously he's definitely not a wolf. He's stronger than that. But with Sukuna, man, he's really powerful. And of course, I've only seen like a little bit of it so far. We're only up to what, episode 6 at this point. Demon for sure. Borderline dragon. Might even be pushing dragon at this point, Sukuna. I mean, and we haven't even seen it with all of like his fingers yet. He only has what, 3 of them or 2 of them? I think 3 of them at this point. But even with just 1 of them, he was exceptionally powerful, super fast and whatnot. So, demon, possible dragon. And then Brushyboi asks, do you watch/read Hunter x Hunter? No, I do not. I always get asked this, but I'm going to check it out like once it comes back. Once Togashi goes off his hiatus, I will come back to Hunter x Hunter, but until then, not really that interested in it. And then who would win, Josuke versus Pre-Requiem Giorno? Who do you think wins? I would say that Crazy Diamond is a bad matchup for experience. But, you know, it goes into like different things about how the characters would interact with each other. If we're just talking like straight, you know, power versus power, I would say Josuke probably wins. But again, I'm definitely not a black belt in JoJo. Dino W asks, what disaster level did you get Daisy Johnson from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show? So I've only seen a little bit of her. But from what I have seen, she has like some kind of like power that can like some kind of seismic power or something. I mean, it's not like that significant, but I don't know. I've seen her in like a normal fight. She's like tiger, somewhat. Nothing stood out to me for like demon level at least. And when did you suspect Dabi was Toya? That's a good question. I don't know. It's kind of all blurring together at this point. Like, I was kind of suspicious of Dabi's origin because they plant that as soon as he's shown. Because, you know, the Shigaraki's like, you know, no, I want to know your real name. And then Dabi says, no, for now, Dabi is fine. And of course, he has fire powers and the blue eyes, but you don't really catch on to that unless you're looking really into it. So maybe when they made it a point that Toya was dead for sure, then I was starting to suspect that Dabi was probably him. Simone Kamina asks, what is your highest high dragons between Saitama with Limiter, Prime Bang, Armored Boros?
And this most recent project we've been working
I mean, I guess
on 2020 Civic Engagement.
I guess we could say that Prime Bang may be stronger than Armored Boros at this point. Maybe. again, it's like we're already speculating so much with all three of these characters. Maybe Limited Saitama, peak unlimited Saitama. And your second question, reincarnated Phoenix Man versus Endeavor, who would win? Man, it would be a super tough fight for Endeavor, I would say. He could pull it off. I think Phoenix Man probably would fail to the prominence burn at this point, but you know, also I doubt Endeavor has like the speed and the physicality of resurrected Phoenix Man, even in his, I don't know, we'll say nerfed state. I would say that maybe the betting favorite would be resurrected Phoenix Man at this point. Derek asks, what kind of impact would Dobby telling the world what Endeavor and Hawks did, assuming they go down the route, have on the heroes? Good question. I don't think there's going to be like a cancellation of Endeavor, especially since I think that he's probably going to die soon. But I'll say that the heroes definitely are going to look at him the same. But I do think that there might go down the route of like, hey, him saving and all of the good that he's done maybe outweighs the bad. And at that point, maybe even Shoto will step up and like defend him. Maybe even Natsuo steps up at that point. Like that's Natsuo's big character arc, is to where he decides to defend Endeavor and like he helps turn the public appeal of him, regardless if he's dead or alive. Little Ferrari asks, if you were to put on a UFC card but all the fighters were from the One Punch Man universe, what would the card be? So it's gonna be like 5 fights because that's a standard UFC card. And I would say that like main event Blast versus Boros. Gotta see it. I'd rather see that more so than Boros versus Garo at this point for sure. Then Flashy Flash versus Darkshine. It's got to be put on there. And then I got a really weird random one. Golden S versus Metal Bat. That's because I just want these two to go against each other just so we can see their full limit, their full peak. And then both of the fandoms who keep like yelling at me about these two individuals can just like stop. I would just settle it for them. Bang versus Goketsu, because I think that's another fight that needs to be seen. And then Puri versus Tank Top, because that's like a great fight, I think. Even if it's not like big, extravagant, and monumental, it's still, you know, something that needs to happen. And then Delamante asks, what do you think about episode 19 of Demon Slayer? How would you rate it? I think it was great. Animation, of course, solid. Everything looks good. But, you know, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room here. And that whole ending sequence was, you know, Deus Ex Dad. And I was kind of liking the fact that Demon Slayer didn't really do the whole Deus Ex thing a lot. I mean, honestly, I can't even recall too many moments of it. But that one moment when, you know, he, like, gets Rui, Deus Ex-y, not bad. I mean, of course, there's always elements of Deus Ex in pretty much everything, I guess, to some degree, but it's fine. And I also like that Nezuko got her little Deus Ex moment as well, so that was cool. But also, it'll probably get explained later on as to how his father inherited that, or what the significance of his dad is and all that stuff, so it's fine. I mean, it looked great, and it was definitely emotional and whatnot. Zeldoor asks, do you think God will get a new name eventually? Interesting question. I'm not sure, because I think that his like straight up villain name is going to be God, and that's of course because he named himself God. Unless we get the backstory of him, which hopefully we do, and it turns out that like he's something of like a human originally, maybe like how I speculate possibly, or whatever he was, then maybe we'll get his original name, you know, kind of like how my mask is Buto and whatnot, so it'll be something like that. Snowpeas asks, do you think Tatsumaki has a crush on King? I don't necessarily know if she has like a full-blown crush on him, but I'll say that she admires him more so than pretty much every other person, I guess, because King represents absolute power, of course, and his, you know, his charisma influences her for sure. It always goes back to what I talk about, like when Fubuki first sees King. Oh, not first sees him, but when she sees him come into like the apartment in that one time, he looks super handsome to her. So I suppose he looks super handsome to Tatsumaki as well. And she's also always complimented him, but also one of the very few people to ever kind of, dare I say, almost disrespect him. But there's definitely that one panel where she's like looking at him. I'll have it right here. It's definitely kind of indicating something. Natedawg asks, who was more powerful at the end of Heroes Rising, Deku or Bakugo? Man, hard to say because they both had very similar outputs of power. I mean, I guess you gotta say that Deku was more physically powerful. I mean, the shots that he was landing on 9 were definitely impactful, but Bakugo had those molten blasts, which Izuku clearly didn't have. So I would say that they're somewhat evened out. Too difficult to say like who was stronger than the other at this point. I would say they're basically around the same level at that point. Alice asks, if you could see more screen time of one S-Class hero, who would it be? Metal Knight for sure. He represents way more of a threat and way more of a power significance than Watchdog Man, in my opinion at least. I just want to see what Metal Knight is fully capable of. I mean, his robot is cool, and the data book saying that he has 100 of them is fine and whatnot, but man, I really want to see like his super powerful robots, or I just want to see like whatever else he has, you know? LS, I have a prediction that Bufoi is using Dr. Kuseno to collect data on Saitama through Genos. How would these characters be connected? Well, I mean, there's like no real way to connect them without like speculation and headcanon, because there's no evidence, of course, as I always say. But there are some similarities, I suppose. They both are older dudes. They're both into robotic stuff, even though different branches. But it is interesting, the timing of things, where Kuseno is suddenly getting data on Saitama right after Bufoi said that he was going to go after him. You know, because, well, not go after him, but was definitely going to take a look at him or something like that. So it is possible. I'm not going to discredit that. There's definitely some signs that point that that could be a possibility. I think that would have been kind of cool, actually, if it played out that way. Gardenshed asks, well, Gardenshed, you're pulling a little sneaky here. So I'll just answer your first one, to be fair to everyone else. Nejiri versus Shigaraki. So we already seen her kind of blasting weaken Shigaraki, and I suppose that's who you're talking about at this point, right? Because obviously there's no way that Nejiri could take 75%, you know, fresh plus Ultra Shigaraki. He would just one-shot her. She can probably push the weakened state of Shigaraki to possibly defeat. It definitely wasn't looking good, especially with the assistance of Shoto's. And then I'll throw a little bonus in there. The only way that Genus can defeat Gigantomachia is if somehow the plot makes those carbon fiber cables so powerful that he somehow cannot like fight back from them. That's about it. If he doesn't have the carbon fiber cables, Machia just one-shots Best Genus. So that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Once again, I want to thank all 120 of my amazing patrons who would like to be in next week's Q&A. Simply check out the Patreon $5 tier. We'll give you access to this video. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.